Today, we're going to dig into how our answer to a really fundamental question has totally changed. What does it actually mean to be healthy? We're talking about a massive shift, moving away from just curing sickness to understanding the real roots of what makes us well. So, let's dive in.
So let's just start right there. What does it really mean to be healthy? Seriously, take a second and think about it. For most of human history, the answer seemed pretty simple. But as we're about to see, that simple answer, it just doesn't cut it anymore. For centuries, we looked at health through this really narrow lens. If a doctor couldn't find a specific disease, hey, you were healthy. End of story. But then in 1948, the World Health Organization came along and completely changed the game. They gave us this modern view, defining health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And that's the key, right? Health isn't just about what you don't have. It's about the positive presence of well-being in every part of your life.
So, this new, bigger definition of health forced us to rethink what causes disease in the first place. I mean, if health is this complex, interconnected thing, then maybe illness is too. And that sparked this huge shift in how we think, moving way beyond just hunting for a single culprit.
The old way of thinking was all about the germ theory. And look, this theory was a total game changer. The work of folks like Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch was brilliant. They proved that a specific germ causes specific disease. One germ, one disease. It was clean, it was simple. But what about today's biggest problems, like heart disease or diabetes or cancer? Well, that simple one-to-one model, it really starts to fall apart.
And this is the modern model. It's called the web of causation. Just look at this thing. Instead of a single cause, a heart attack is shown as the result of a long, tangled chain reaction. You can literally trace how all these different factors, lifestyle, genetics, stress, they all weave together. They lead to things like obesity and high blood pressure, which eventually can end in a heart attack. It's not a straight line. It's a messy, complicated web.
So if diseases are caused by these super complex webs, how on earth do we even begin to untangle them? How do we find the most important threads to pull on? Well, that's where public health's detective work comes in, using a science called epidemiology.
This quote from Rudyard Kipling, it absolutely nails the spirit of epidemiology. It really is the science of asking questions. It's all about investigating how and why health problems pop up in a population, just like a detective showing up to a crime scene and trying to piece together what happened.
And let me tell you, this is one of the most famous detective stories in the history of medicine. So it's 1854, and London is in the middle of a horrific cholera outbreak. A doctor named John Snow, he didn't know what germ caused cholera, nobody did, but he did something totally radical for the time. He started mapping where people were dying. And his map, the one you see here, it revealed this terrifying cluster of deaths all around one single water pump on Broad Street. So he convinced the authorities to remove the pump handle, and just like that, the outbreak stopped. He solved the mystery just by looking for the pattern.
In that brilliant, simple method John Snow used, it basically became the standard toolkit for today's public health detectives, epidemiologists. To investigate any health problem, they always start with these three basic questions. When is it happening? Where is it happening? And who is it happening to? Answering these gives them the first big clues they need to start untangling that web of causation.
Okay, so finding the causes is one thing. But the whole point of all this detective work is to prevent the problem from happening again, right? And to do that, public health uses this really powerful four-part strategy.
These are the 4 levels of prevention. You can kind of think of them as a series of defensive walls that we can build up to protect our health. Let's break them down one by one.
First, you've got primordial prevention. This is the most fundamental level. It means going way, way upstream to stop the risk factors from even showing up in the first place. Think about things like promoting healthy diets for kids so they build healthy habits that last a lifetime.
Next up, we have primary prevention, and this is probably the one you're most familiar with. This is all about taking action before anyone gets sick. Things like vaccines or laws that make us wear seatbelts are classic examples. They prevent the injury or illness from ever happening.
Then you've got secondary prevention. This is what kicks in when a disease might have already started but isn't showing any symptoms yet. The whole goal here is to catch it early and stop it in its tracks. So then cancer screenings, blood pressure checks, finding it early can make all the difference. And finally, there's tertiary prevention. This is for when an illness has already taken hold and is part of someone's life. The focus here is on softening the impact of that illness and improving their quality of life. This includes things like physical therapy after a stroke or helping someone manage their diabetes.
So, when you put it all together, this really broad definition of health, the crazy complex web of causes, and all these different levels of prevention, one thing becomes incredibly clear. Creating health isn't a solo activity. It's a team sport.
And this right here, this is why this shift in thinking is so critical right now. This chart shows a dramatic change in what's threatening our health globally. The leading causes of death aren't infectious diseases anymore. They're chronic, non-communicable diseases like heart disease and stroke, the exact kind of problems that are explained by that messy web of causation.
The simple truth is this. Our health challenges have changed. The old model of one germ, one cure, dealing with one patient at a time, it just isn't enough anymore. Our approach has to change too. Which really brings us to our final thought. If our health is truly shaped by this complex web of social, environmental, and economic factors, is staying healthy something you can or even should have to do all on your own? It's something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.